Hello everyone and welcome to Whisky Wednesday. As you've all already seen from the title, you can kind of guess what this video is going to be about, but I'm going to draw it out a little bit anyway. As whiskey drinkers, as spirits drinkers, for everyone who watches this channel, because you don't just drink whiskey, I'm just going to put my phone away so it doesn't vibrate. We like to explore different things, and for years and years and years and years I have wanted to get into cognac in such a big way. And I still do. I even love saying the word cognac. It's just quite a nice word. But at the same time, I'm still waiting to be overly impressed by something from the cognac world. And straight away, I want to say that this video isn't an attack or a scathing criticism of what cognac is, because it's one of the biggest selling spirits in the world. It's one of the oldest spirits in the world. One of the reasons I do enjoy it is just the history behind it. It's as fascinating a history as whiskey is, all types of whiskey. But like many people at this time of year, I was doing some Christmas shopping the other day, and I thought to myself, you know what, I've not treated myself to something that isn't whiskey in quite a long time. So I thought, okay, I'm in this particular shop. I'm buying some things. I'll buy a cognac and see what's going on. And I chatted to a gentleman, very knowledgeable gentleman, who taught me through it all. He showed me everything from £40 through to a couple of thousand. Didn't give him a budget, and it was amazing to hear someone so passionate about the spirit. But one thing that kept coming up all the time was 40%. And that's a bit of a gripe in the whiskey world anyway. But in cognac, it seems to be a constant, almost. I will say that there are some brands, such as Ferrand and even Courvoisier, who've done some interesting experiments with barrel finishing, and Ferrand are building some sort of older styles of cognac from their history books, from like the 1820s and things, at a slightly higher alcohol level, which is quite interesting for a pretty affordable amount of money. But I was like, I'll pass on a full-size bottle. But as I was leaving, he was like, we do have miniatures. I was like, ooh, you got some miniatures. I like a miniature. I want to try something. And I saw this. Hennessey XO, which is something I get asked for a lot. It's 130 to about £160 a bottle, depending on where you shop. And I suppose in a way it's kind of like the cognac version of Johnny Walker Blue Label, as are things like Martin XO and Courvoisier XO and Martel XO. Cognac has some pretty strict regulations around it. I'd say as strict, if not slightly more strict than Scotch whisky and bourbon as well. It's very protected. You cannot add sugars or sulfurs to the fermentation process. You're not allowed to do that. But what you can do at the end of it is add sugar. You can add sugar. You can add sugar syrup. You can add something called bois, B-O-I-S, which is like shaved down wood chips from old barrels, which are put into casks. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I don't want this to be like a 25-minute video. But essentially, you can do some things at the end process of this stuff, which I think is quite contradictory to what a lot of cognac brands put out there. So for instance, the sugar thing, they say that they add sugar to round off the mouthfeel. And I'm like, okay, cool, but wouldn't higher alcohol do that as well? Give you a bigger texture, give you a bit more going on. They do use virgin oak for the first 2 years of cognac's maturation, normally from Limousin or Tronquois, I think I'm saying that correctly. And then it's used in sort of older casks. Something I did find particularly interesting about cognac, especially like the really old stuff, like the Louis Trey stuff, where they've got some 100-year-old stuff in there, is that they decant it from casks, say when it's getting to like that 40% marker, where it's just above, and they'll store it in glass jars called bourbon jars, or I think it's bonbon jars, and you can take from that and add to batches and blends, which I think is fantastic. I don't know if you can even do that in Scotch whisky. I don't think you can. Cognac can do that, and you can make these remarkably complex things with this ancient liquid. but you're also bottling it at 40%, and there's added colour. There is additional sugars, additional wood influences. So yeah, I find it a little bit contradictory. I mean, we talk about the colour of this thing. Let me grab this, which is the Bowmore Fayal from this year. One of my favourite whiskies of this year. This is almost the same colour. Almost. Give or take a bit. And I find that just a little bit disingenuous, if I'm being honest with you. Especially for the price of this stuff. And, Hennessy Parody is a couple of £1,000s a bottle. Remy Martin Louis Trey is £3,500 a bottle now. And they have additional sugars and all this coloured stuff. Now, the history of cognac is that it's meant to be a very approachable, easy drinking style. It's meant to be this smooth mouthfeel, very luxurious, all that kind of stuff. And I get that. I do. Especially the money you're charging and the people who've probably been drinking it for years. This video is not a reason for you to stop drinking cognac. If you drink cognac, amazing. Please keep drinking it, enjoy it. Buy your favourite brand constantly and celebrate at Christmas and birthdays and all these beautiful events and share it with friends. But I think, personally, this, you can get better stuff. I am speaking from a whiskey point of view, of course. That's what I know best. But I feel that this miniature, which cost me £21, which I think is the most expensive. No, it's not the most expensive miniature I've ever bought, but it is one of the more expensive smaller bottles I've ever bought. That's cognac. This is a 25-year-old bottle of Armagnac, which is also 40% and also probably has additional sugars and stuff in it. But it only cost me £50. And in the scheme of value, or in the scheme of value, that's pretty good. It comes in this really fetching box. It's from Delord. Stunning stuff. I think I've had about an eighth of that bottle, and it's turned into this beautiful, like, espresso-y, coffee-rich walnut type of whiskey, type of Armagnac, sorry. So, with something that's as world famous as Hennessy, Remy Martin, Courvoisier, Martel, I suppose in a way you are paying for the fame of it, which totally makes sense because Macallan. Why can't I think of Macallan, Dalmore, Glendronach these days, Johnny Walker, Chivas Regal, so many big brands, and you are paying for the name. But will I be proven wrong, and will this taste excellent? Now, I've learnt a bit of a lesson today because I've not used this camera in about a week, and I left the battery in, and it's been charging for 3 hours through my laptop, which was a bad idea, and it charged up in 20 minutes in the mains. So always take your battery out of your camera when you're not using it. But so this has been sat in the glass for 3 hours. It is a stunning colour. With the whole caramel thing, I bet the natural colour isn't far off that, but it has to look the same every time. I get why people do it. But as I said, this video isn't a criticism, it's more of an open statement. So let's talk about cognac as spirits enthusiasts. Smell. It is much more open than it was in the first hour. There's some beautiful woody elements to it, as you would expect. With it being XO, I believe that means the minimum age of stuff that can be in this is 10 years old. But it does smell particularly woody. But is that from that boise thing? Do you know? Will it contain some quite old stock? I bet it does. There's a really nice element of loads of raisin, like that sherry cask raisin note. There's a little bit of honeysuckle. Apologies if you heard that on the mic, there's like a very loud bike just went past. And there are some really nice chocolatey notes. There's a slight espresso note to it, much as what's with this Armagnac. But something I get in bucket loads off the top of that, and even as someone who enjoys virgin oak and bourbon, and grain whiskey too, is that there's quite a lot of acetone on the nose. You know, kind of nail varnishy, paint remover sort of flavours, smells. So that, and I don't mind it, but you know, if you're talking about the ultimate luxury in smooth mouthfeel and hedonism, acetone isn't something I associate with that. But nonetheless, let's taste it. You know what I will say? The finish is exceptionally dry. Like, quite dry. I was expecting a little bit more of a, again, I suppose like a Scotch whisky finish, like a heavily sherried Scotch whisky finish. Like, slightly drying, but maybe like spicy in a fun way with like ginger and vanillas, and you know, the oak plays such an important part. French oak in its own way has this beautiful spice to it, gingerbready flavours and things like that. There is a small element of that with this, but it is incredibly dry. All spirits are dry, but this is like really, really dry. The initial arrival of the flavour profile is, again, raisins, it's a little bit honeyed, there's a little bit of like very brittle dark chocolate in there. It's not mind-blowing though. But then again, I suppose for like a mass market product, most mass market products aren't mind-blowing, they're just developed for a very particular profile. But I will say, this is the first time I've ever tried Hennessey XO, and I was expecting quite a bit more. I tried Martell XO in lockdown 1, maybe lockdown 2. Came in this ridiculous kind of boomerang bottle, and I thought it was just really plain. It didn't really offer me anything particularly interesting as far as the spirit goes. It was just a bit fruity and had a slight kind of old leather note to it. It wasn't as dry as this. But let's taste it. We will give it a score. It's, you know, the point of the video. Yep, still as dry. A little bit more spice this time. Slightly sort of turmeric-y. There's also like a really nice chai thing going on with it too, so nice Eastern spices. Or Indian style spices, I should say. There's not tons of sweetness at all. It's very drying and a little bit clawing with that dryness. It's not unpleasant, but I just wasn't expecting it to be so dry. But anyway, bit of a makeshift video. Our cameraman Ed is on a much needed holiday, so welcome back to the office. But yeah, like, as I said, this is a discussion about cognac, so I'm game in 2022 for spending more of my own money and more time getting to know this spirit. It's the only spirit, maybe with the exception of rum. I do know slightly more about rum and I've tried more rum. But this stuff, I feel, just needs a bit more attention because as a spirits drinker, I want to get into it and I want to find one that'll tick the box. At some point I will, because statistically, you just will. But, you know, at the price that this is being charged and, you know, the amount of money that people like myself and you watching this video have spent on bottles before, this really doesn't do it for me. So I think this is roughly available at about £130, right? So think, as a viewer of this channel and many of the channels, if you could buy one bottle for about 130 quid, what would you buy? And I'm gonna pull down, I mean, I think that was like, that was about 120-ish. What else we got? That was an absolute steal at £110. There's loads of stuff like not on display. And I won't reach up and get them because you've seen them loads, but we've got like Buffalo Trace Antique Collection stuff, which I managed to get for RRP of like 150 quid. So within that price bracket, there is some stiff competition. And if you want a smooth drink, as much as I hate that word, I would say there's easier stuff to drink than this in the whiskey world. And it's the same alcohol percentage. And it's not as dry. Might be a little bit spicier, but it's certainly not as dry. But anyway, let's open a discussion about cognac. If you have any recommendations, stick them below, and I will buy them. I will review them, hopefully in a more pristine setting than this, because I would like to understand it more and understand what it's about and chat to more cognac drinkers. So if you are one, comment below. We can have a bit of dialogue, and I will happily purchase something that you recommend, because I just want to get into it a lot more. Yeah, thank you all for watching. We still have some very exceptional videos to film when Ed is back, because I want them all to look fantastic. Stuff that we honestly didn't think we'd be able to get hold of, but we've managed to get hold of it. But yes, I'll see you all next week. Thank you all for watching, and I look forward to the feedback from this video. Cheers.